Thank you for joining us on Miracles Are My Normal. Your host, Colleen Lowe, is a successful realtor, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. On Miracles Are My Normal, we interview entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, creatives, big thinkers, and those helping shape our future, all who are leading epic lives. They share insights into building their successful businesses, developing a growth mindset, creating a vision for your life, starting with the end in mind, and overcoming obstacles and challenges. Our mission is to share tips, tools, and secrets to assist our followers with gaining the insights and perspective to building their own success stories and living epic lives filled with appreciation, joy, and miracles. Let's make this happen together. And now, your host, Colleen Lowe.
Welcome to today's podcast. We're so excited about our interview today because we have Dave Culen on the podcast who has absolutely transformed my life. And I know that if you listen to today's interview, you're going to get nuggets from him that will transform your life too. And so I want to give you a little background. First of all, welcome, Dave, to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you today. And I'm going to just tell you who he is because I think it's important that you kind of know what people have accomplished so you can see why it's important to implement some of the things they say. In 2007, David joined Keller Williams, realizing that Keller Williams was changing the industry, right? Mm-hmm. And you opened your first brokerage, and you have launched what? This office has been almost 8 years old, right?
That's right.
And we have 3 other offices, right?
That's right.
We're number one. This office is number one in California now in 8 short years, right?
Right.
Which is a huge accomplishment because there's a lot of other offices that were here for a long time before us.
That's right.
And I think that I remember when you contacted me, you single-handedly,
I do too.
Yeah, you called me and said, let's meet at Pete's, right?
That's right.
You
Got to
just
get you to a coffee that was really close to your current office.
Right? Was that your goal?
That was my goal. My goal was to get an appointment with you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I didn't know what the goal after that was going to be.
Yeah, and this office didn't exist. Where we're sitting and videotaping, this wasn't here. You didn't know where the office was even going to be when I met with you.
That's right. That's probably another reason we met at Pete's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know what's amazing is he had a vision for what he wanted to create. And I think that's really important because now he has the number one franchise in California for Keller Williams, right?
That's right.
And it all started with making phone calls.
That's right.
And a vision. You had the vision first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about how did you come? I mean, did you always, when you were a kid growing up, did you always want to be a Keller Williams franchisor?
No.
Right?
No. When I was a kid, I had a briefcase full of fake money, and I used to like to play the game Monopoly, and I just had an idea that being a business person was something that I wanted to achieve. Had no clue what that meant or how it was going to happen.
Okay. So when you were a kid, but you did know you wanted to be a business person.
I think it stems from a behavioral trait where I just don't like to be told what to do.
Uh-huh.
So I think I have some resistance to that, and I'm willing to take the risk to accomplish something that allows me freedom.
Freedom. That's one of my things here. Freedom, choices, and options is what we talk a lot about on these podcasts because what we want to give our listeners is freedom, choices, and options to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, and how they want to do it.
I love it.
Isn't that good?
Yes, it's very cool.
So then you went from playing Monopoly as a kid, graduated from high school, and then you got your real estate license and boom, you're on your way, or did you have something in between?
I went to college. I left college early with an opportunity to get into a family restaurant or little cafe business. Mm-hmm. And that was way more appealing to me than studying for classes. And so I came back from Colorado to Virginia, and I thought, let me help my family build this business. And in hindsight, I think that's funny because I was clueless in many ways. And I remember helping with the menu and doing things that I thought you would do, including sending the contractors down the mall to take photos of the exterior of a Victoria's Secret, because I was thinking, how am I going to tell these contractors what we should build and what the store should look like? And I was thinking, well, why not just go down and take photos of a successful company and just show them that vision? And that was a shortcut. And so just little things like that, which I think now fall under a category that success leaves clues. And if there's other people that have gone before us that have created huge success, why not take what they've shown us to do and shortcut our path to achieving something similar?
I think that is so important. Success leaves clues. And I think that leads into like environment matters, right? Because
Oh, sure.
if you surround yourself with people who know what they're doing,
That's right.
how can that shortcut you to your end game, to your goals?
Well, I think not only does it shortcut you to your end game, but all of us are humans, and one of the things that has helped me is I just go under the assumption that every day is not going to be as amazing as we thought it was going to be, and there's going to be challenges. And I always refer to the cartoons where the steamroller runs over the character, and the character is now flattened, which sometimes life creates us to feel flattened. And then how do we blow back up? And in the cartoons, they just blow out their thumb.
Roadrunner. I grew up on those.
So I'm thinking that maybe it's going to be helpful that I'm in an environment with a bunch of other people that they're crushing it that day, and I've been flattened by the steamroller, and by being around them, I can blow myself up with my thumb, and I can get right back on track, and I can put in the 10,000 hours required to achieve that success, and I'm going to do that easier around other successful people. And I think it takes a group of them.
I do. I think you can't do it alone.
No.
No.
It's another philosophy,
Yeah.
another belief.
When you built this office, did you just go after like average agents, or did you go after the top agents first?
I went after the best.
Yeah.
And that's only because I had been involved in 2 other franchises prior, and I realized the influence that the best have, and it's like a domino effect. And so if I put all the pressure on the goal of attracting and getting into business with the best, then they become like a vacuum for everybody else, because everybody else wants to be around those folks. And that's the environment I wanted, and that's the environment that I have come to realize others want as well.
It really does attract people, and it does help us all become our best version of ourselves. Because I think that we all have limiting beliefs, and we only think so much is possible. And then when you meet someone else who's like selling twice as much as you, or doing twice as much as you, or doing something that you never thought you could do before, it makes you think, oh, if he can do it, I could probably do that too. Or even if I could do half of what that person's doing.
That's right.
And it expands our mindset.
And then depending on how you absorb that information, and this is just an observation I've made, and a personal one for sure, is I'm a firm believer that myself, and I'm a firm believer that others can build what they've seen. And so maybe reading about it or hearing about it is enough to pique some interest, but it's not enough to not only prove to myself that I can do it, but then show me what I have to do from A to Z. I want to know what B is, and what C is, and what D is, and by seeing what they do, visiting their operation, and getting an intimate awareness of that, then I can execute.
It makes a huge difference. When we can see it, and it's tangible in our brain, and then we can implement it, and we know what to do next. Because I think a lot of people get stuck in, well, I want to accomplish this big goal, and you might be sitting there listening to us saying, yeah, I want to do this, but I don't know what my next step is. Do you think it's important to know what the next step is?
I think it's important to know what the steps are, but before that, I think it's important to believe that it's possible. And that comes in many forms. So if others, to your point, if others have done it, then do I choose to believe that I'm someone else who can do it? Or do I choose to believe that I'm not as good as they are for whatever reason, so I can't.
Yeah, am I worthy? Can I accomplish it? It's just like we were talking before we started, and I told Dave that I didn't care about wealth before Carter had cancer, but that's actually not true, and we pointed that out. That's a misnomer, misbelief. I didn't think it was possible for me. I didn't think that I could accomplish that.
Well, I asked you, did you not care about it, or did you not believe you could achieve it?
Yeah, and it's actually the second. If I'm being honest, I just didn't think I could achieve it, and I wasn't passionate about it, and I just thought it was something for other people, which is, I think, something we discount. We tell ourselves a story of things that aren't exactly accurate.
What can you do with wealth that you couldn't otherwise do without wealth?
For me personally, what I want to do with it is Carter had cancer, and it made me very aware of how much families are impacted negatively financially. I feel like cancer doesn't just want your kid. Cancer wants all your money. It wants your relationship. It wants your family. It wants your marriage. It wants everything because it's so overwhelming and it's so taxing and stressful that I feel like that it wants everything from you. If your kid's really sick. And I think that we're setting up a foundation and making sure we can help people with their gas. I mean, I never realized people have to pay for their gas going back and forth to the hospital. They have to pay for parking while their kid's at the hospital. They have one person can't work anymore. Someone has to be there to advocate for the kid. Because you never know when doctors are going to make rounds, and so an adult needs to be there when they come so you can make medical decisions for your kids, so your family's loss of income, which then puts a bigger stress on the marriage and the family. Someone else, if you have other kids, someone else to take care of the other kids, or if you own your own business, you're not able to manage it as well as you could before, unless other people step in.
So prior to that life occurrence, like life happens, as they say, maybe you didn't know that you had the capacity to deal with that big of a challenge.
Yeah, true.
And then you got hit with it head on. And then you chose to react to it a certain way.
Yeah.
And by the choices you made to react to it and take it head on, you achieve things that may not have otherwise been thought possible, right? And you can put a check mark by that, like you crushed it.
Yeah.
Right? I would go to events, and the room might have 100 people, and 5 of the people were from our company, and you were always one of the 5 during the toughest challenge you had ever faced, where you could have just stayed home, because that event in a lot of people's mind, and these were personal growth type events. You could have just said, you know what, no thanks. I've got to deal with what's going on in my family, and somehow you knew that being there was going to give you the power to crush that adversity. And I believe, and this is more of a question to you, because you were able to do that, now you're staring getting wealth or building wealth in the face, like I've got this.
It's totally true. Carter having cancer and deciding
Which one's going to be easier?
Yeah, building the wealth. Yeah, it's the craziest thing and I did show up to a lot of things. I would leave the hospital and go to growth and mindset events.
That inspired me that you were there.
Yeah, and people are like, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm refilling the cup. I'm putting my oxygen mask on. Like, when you're on a plane and they tell you put yours on first and then do your kids. And it's interesting that you said success leaves clues, and I just got chills thinking about this. The steps to becoming wealthy are becoming easier because of the choices I made to be positive and to sacrifice time away from Carter and go to these events, because the people that I've connected with and become friends with, or the example I've set, have made it so that the influence of those people in my life to achieve this new goal is phenomenal. Like you're on this interview with me.
I'm still stuck at the oxygen mask, and the reason why I'm stuck at the oxygen mask is because I've been in rooms where that analogy has been used, and there's a division in the room, and the room is divided by what would I have done, and and would I have chosen the oxygen mask? And some people believe that putting the oxygen mask on first is self-serving. And the way you're demonstrating it is you needed to recharge to be the matriarch and be the powerful one to battle what happened to the family.
Yeah.
And without your battery life being recharged, you would not have necessarily come through it. Therefore, maybe the result would have been different. Maybe other people would have been negatively impacted to a larger degree. So is that selfish? Not at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? And I do think that we set the tone for our lives and our families. Like, I know that when I was on the 5th floor where Carter had cancer, there were moms who spent a lot of time crying and upset, and everyone has their own path and their own journey and how they process things. But I do think that we set the tone. Carter's a young kid, right? And he's looking to John and I to see how he's reacting to things, right? Looking to how we're processing what the doctors are telling us, looking at us to see how we're processing every situation. And I love that when Carter was flatlining, he was getting worse and worse and worse one time. And I love that he did
More than once.
Yeah, more than once. It was just the most amazing thing is that he used humor, and he actually did some Snapchats and sent Snapchats out to his friends when they're like have a team of 6 or 7 people working on him. He used humor and how did he want to be and how did he want to feel.
How did that help you? You're watching that happen.
It made me feel better. It made me feel like Carter's going to be, I was a little panicked, but it made me feel like Carter's going to be okay because he's using distraction to not be so focused on, holy crap, I'm in a bad situation here.
Did you interpret that as a sign of strength from Carter? So it made you feel like he was going to be okay?
Yeah. He did tell me once, Carter said, Mom, I got this. I'm going to bury you. You're not burying me. I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then I think I want to touch on something else. I think that people should be open to things that maybe don't make sense to them at first. Because we wouldn't be sitting here and talking, and I feel like I wouldn't be at this office if when I first met you, I didn't really want to meet with you again.
I remember.
And I mean, I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying I think it's really important that sometimes things that are really good for us and really going to take us to reach our goals might not make sense to us the first time we hear them.
Yeah.
Because your message didn't resonate with me when I first met you. And I turned you over to John.
That's right.
Have you ever experienced something like that in your life where something, you find out later something was really important and that is a good thing that you did that? Like my life would be so different if we hadn't met you, and my life is on a totally different trajectory.
Well, I mean, you're making me think of so many things that I've been shown by others, but one of them is not getting married to the result, but rather to get married to the process. So, So as I'm adopting that philosophy as consistently as possible, which allows me to make the phone call to set the appointment to meet you at Pete's, I'm getting married to the process of setting appointments, not the outcome. So if the outcome for you that day, we didn't resonate or just didn't gel, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
We pushed through that.
We did.
And then on the other side of that, we got to learn things about each other that could benefit us both. Now, prior to us meeting, we're both viewing the world from our own perspective.
Yeah.
You're viewing your world from yours. So I don't remember exactly what happened in that meeting, but maybe I'm attempting to talk to you about things that weren't on your radar. Therefore, from your view, not important. And if they're not important to you, what would be compelling enough for you to want to take a second meeting? So I have to understand that and not be judgmental about it in the first place, and see if we can get through that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when John met with you, he's like, we're moving. Like, it was instantaneous. Like, he's like, this is our next step. This is our next path. This is what we need to do. I mean, he came home and that's what he told me. He goes, this is what we've been looking for, and this is what we need to do. And I think it is really important that we realize that.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, John Lowe. And it's affected not just our business life, but every other part of our lives, right? Our personal life, our life with Carter, right? Because it really put us in a different environment where we started thinking about growth mindset. And before I came here, I never thought about growth mindset. Tell me about growth mindset and how it's impacted your life.
Okay, well, so the first thing that comes to my mind is just another thing that I've been taught is we grow, or our businesses grow if we're going to talk about business. Or we could talk about spirituality. We could talk about personal relationships. We could talk about wealth building. All of that's going to show up after we grow inside first. And so that's why there's such an emphasis on personal growth. There's a lot of stuff that goes on around here that's mindset based. I'm a firm believer, just based on my own journey and what I've seen in others, that's more of a law than a theory, and that was my intended goal for all of those folks that I met early on, because earlier you had asked me about the vision and what did I do before. The piece we missed from the restaurants to real estate, the other in between was a nutrition-based business that had a personal training element of it as well. And that served a few purposes for me. One, it gave me much greater personal confidence to be in amazing physical shape at that point in my life, and earn the respect of people that I may have otherwise been intimidated by, in some cases several billionaires. And so confidence was important. Being an expert of that subject was something that they gravitated towards. But the whole thing in hindsight was all personal growth.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Belief,
huge.
commitment, all of the things we talk about today was happening then that allowed the transition into real estate to be a little bit more successful.
Yeah, and it's huge. Because our minds and the growth mindset, if we don't have that, we just stay where we are. That has to shift first.
So then the meetings I'm going to have with a top real estate agent like yourself when I meet is not going to be to talk to you about the listing presentation.
Right, because why?
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why is that not the focus?
Because I already have the listing presentation down. I mean, I could tweak it and get it a little better, but it's something that I'm already, it's not going to gravitate me to make a shift in my life. Because I think change, humans in nature, we go against change. We don't like change. We like things to kind of stay the same.
Comfortable.
It's comfortable. Yeah. I think that,
Was cancer comfortable?
no. Very uncomfortable. I think
Did it help you find your purpose? That was something that you said off camera before we sat down. And I think that's very interesting.
It totally, my whole life is shifted. Everything's changed. I wake up, you don't have to convince me to do what I want to do anymore. I know exactly what needs to be done, and I know that the parts that I don't know what needs to be done, that God and the universe are bringing those people into my life, or if I don't know who they are and they're not immediately apparent, that I know who to go to as resource just to say, hey, I need help here or there. I don't know what to do here. Who do you know that I should know to help me get there? And
So asking for help.
Yeah, it's huge.
List the things. So what advice would you give to Colleen Lowe before this life event versus the way you see the world now?
Get really clear on your big why. Why do you want to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish? And I thought I was before, but I wasn't. Because if you don't wake up passionate every day about what you're going to do, then you're not clear on it. It needs to get dialed in more. You got to really spend some time figuring it out.
How's your energy level now?
So much better. It's all amazing. And like I gained a lot of weight when Carter had cancer because I chose ice cream as a drug of choice when Carter had cancer. And it's interesting that I hadn't been seeing results with my exercise and food program, that it was just kind of do whatever or whenever. And so I checked in with you about what should I do. And I've been doing that program, and I didn't know I should be lifting weights more for my body type. I should be eating differently for my body type. And I think getting the resources that you need to help you in different spots is so important. And then I think, like I don't know where my vision board, oh, it's over there. It's hidden, but
I was looking at it earlier.
yeah, having a clear vision of where you want to be. And I wrote myself a 10-year letter, what my life looks like in 10 years. My mentor Thatch talked about that at his event. And oh yeah, here it is. There's my vision board, right? I made this. I think Carter was in the hospital, and I invited anybody who wanted to come to the house to make these.
I remember that. You had a bunch of people in the backyard.
Yeah, tons of people came to the house, the backyard. They were everywhere. People, other agents in our office, neighbors, people, friends, and we all made these. And I don't know.
What made you think of the vision board in what you just said? Was there anything on there in particular? Or is it the whole idea of the vision board and the clarity it creates?
I think it really creates a lot of clarity. I look at it every day. I take time to ponder it. And then this is just for this year, right? This is for this year. But I did the 10-year letter to myself, and I know exactly what I intend for my life to look like in 10 years. And that's very powerful.
Where is that letter?
It's on my phone, on my iPad. Yeah. And it's interesting that I put stuff on there, and I really gave a lot of thought to it. And I'd never done that before. So I would say to anyone who's listening, write yourself a letter. How do you want your life to look in 10 years? Think with the end in mind.
Without limitation.
Without limitation, because it's crazy. I have a house in Montana. I have a house here. I own 20 properties free and clear. We have a foundation that donates hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands. And at first I would just put Chalk Hospital, and I was talking to some other people, and Ryan Seacrest said you should do multiple hospitals. And so we're not just going to do the kids at Chalk Hospitals. We're going to do other hospitals across the country. And so I made the vision bigger. And it's on its way. It's coming.
It's one of the perspectives of highly successful people is to think bigger, right? Whereas a lot of times people will create a vision for themselves, a goal for themselves, and their challenge is that it's too small and they've now achieved it, right? And if you look at some people that have done amazing things in the world, whether it's Martin Luther King or Bill Gates, their perspective is that what they're involved in, that they're playing an integral role in, can change billions of lives.
Yeah.
So Ryan Seacrest is probably experiencing a huge impact he's made over many, many, many people, and so he's thinking now his perspective is like, what do you mean one hospital? Let's impact hundreds of hospitals or thousands of hospitals.
Right.
Just a different perspective.
Because that's normal for him. Because he's done it.
That's normal. That's his normal.
Yeah. And I do think that as we think bigger, it does help us get more passionate about it. But I do think that if we're not clear on our end game, then we can get, like you said, get attached to the whole process, not to the result. And I think that we get caught up in the result, and we get taken out of the game. Oh, I didn't get that listing, or that person didn't meet with me, or I got beat out, or whatever it is. I think that we spend way too long having a pity party about something.
Well, the focus just shifted. The focus just shifted of what you can't achieve. And we get what we focus on, and that expands.
Yeah, and it's crucial. What advice do you
and
have
what's
for
the
someone?
benefit of being in dwell, right?
There's none, right? Yeah. Do you have any advice for someone that's dwelling on negativity on how they can get out of that?
Well, I think you're making me think of a bunch of different things that we've also been teaching upstairs or sharing upstairs. It's just a conversation. And one of the analogies that I was using was a baby. And you watch a baby that's in the stage of crawling, and they see a red ball across the floor, and they just go for it. without limitations, without fear, and the likelihood of them going after that ball and getting to that ball is pretty high. And then as we grow up and get older, outside influences start changing the way we're thinking by saying, you can't have that. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yes.
You shouldn't think this way. You shouldn't think that way. Stop doing that. Stop doing this. And then all of a sudden, all these limitations are formed, and that's what we're now we're telling ourselves.
And we believe it.
Oh, sure, we believe it, and that's very limiting. So I guess to answer your question, I think it would be my goal would be to have a conversation and figure out how we could remove those limiting beliefs and then redirect the focus in more of what you're saying, which is the 10-year letter. What's the vision? How clear are we on the vision? And then another thing to add to that is share your vision often. And that's what you're doing here, because by sharing your vision often, is it reinforced?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was meditating and felt like I should do these podcasts, about this whole thing. And I didn't know anything about podcasting or anything.
And you're doing them. And all the equipment showed up.
Yep.
All the people have shown up.
All the people have shown up. All the
right.
incredible people to interview. And my resolve to accomplish everything gets stronger with every interview.
Do you ever watch Gary Vee?
Yeah. Oh,
and,
yeah.
And one
He's
of the things he
amazing.
did at 28 was work for his parents'
The wine.
liquor store, and then he started promoting the wine, and he did podcasts, I think, or they were videos of some format, and I saw the early ones like number 4. Not so great as number 1,000. Over time, he got better, and over time, the sales went to $60 million a year. It's just take action.
Take action, no matter if it's imperfect. Yeah, because you know what? That's exactly.
Probably not going to be perfect.
It's not for sure.
Expect that.
Expect it. And you know what's so funny? On my first episode, iTunes rejected my name, but we talked about the name through the whole thing, and that's not the name of my podcast because I got rejected. So, but I did it, and I got published, and it took 5 months for iTunes to approve me, which is crazy.
That goes back to your big why, right? You said your big why was more clear. It creates energy. You're working from passion, which typically, if you're passionate about it, it's big enough. Has a big enough impact when you get there for you to drive you. It creates more battery life, and you're also probably good at it. And if all of those things are in line, you're going to gain more energy through the day rather than deplete energy through the day.
Yeah, which is cute. Energy is everything. Energy is everything. I think that I look at the synergy and the energy of our office. It's very upbeat, very positive. And then I think that people's energy introduces them before they speak. I think that I love what you said about Gary Vee. If you watch his first ones, right? Because he's so good at it now, right? He's like the king of social media, in my opinion. And I think that the fear of how do I do everything and what's it going to look like and everything is keeps us from stopping, no matter what. If you say you're going to write a book, or if you're going to start your podcast, or you're going to start a business, or you want to get into real estate, or you want to invest in real estate, or build an office like this, or get into shape, physically shape. I think that it all just comes with practice. Like you talked about in the beginning, the 10,000 hours. Why did you pick 10,000 hours? Because I've read that book too, but maybe not everyone here has read it.
I didn't read the book. I read the title, and the title tells you everything that you need to know in the book, which is everything you just said. If you want something, realize you will probably not be great day one. You'll fail your way forward. But over time, it builds on itself, and someone came up with the research that at about 10,000 hours, it becomes what some have called unconsciously competent, which is, like breathing. There's no one reminding you to breathe right now, yet you're breathing.
Yeah.
If you didn't breathe, you'd suffocate eventually and die.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah, right. Pretty quickly, 3-4 minutes, whatever
Yeah.
that is, and to go out and make a phone call to schedule an appointment with you to build this office. If I've done it for 10,000 hours, I've probably gotten better at it. I probably don't have a real heavy phone when I go to pick it up in the morning.
You're lighter.
I'm lighter. It's done with ease, and it's also the one thing that by doing that, it builds the office. So if you think about the company now with nearly 1,000 agents in multiple locations, and you just set out to do that, or I set out to do that, it's daunting. It's a big task. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, but it can't be thought that way if it's going to happen. It's got to be for me. It's got to be, give me a cell phone, give me some phone numbers to call, and I'll just make some appointments. That I can handle.
Yeah, chunk it down.
Chunk it down.
Chunk it down. I have a question for you. I like to ask everyone, have you seen a miracle in your life?
I've seen a miracle in my life, and I've seen things manifest and show up.
Yeah.
And you just talked about it. It's like the podcast. Choose to do a podcast. Don't dwell on all of the things that could freeze you from doing the podcast. And then all of a sudden, when I walked in here this morning, you had talked about podcasts.
Yeah.
I knew you were doing them. I haven't physically seen it. And then I walk in, I was like, wow, where did all this equipment come from? And I mean, it looks like you've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's just here, right?
right.
And this is episode 4.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
What's it going to be like at episode 1,000?
1,000. I can't wait. We're going to have a party. It's on my 10-year plan.
And by doing the podcast, do you get everything else that you intended to get on the 10-year letter?
I do. Because one of my big things that I'm passionate about is inspiring other people, getting a message out there that whatever your "my kids got cancer" moment is, whether maybe your spouse died, you got financially wiped out, you were in a car accident, you're paralyzed, your kid does die or has cancer, whatever it is in your life, something's going to paralyze you or something's going to cripple you at some point.
Right.
And you, in that moment, have to decide who you are and how you're going to react to it. And so I want to give people the tools and nuggets and tidbits of information, and things are going to resonate with people, and they can just listen to it and download it and listen to it over and over again, and take the things and take notes and listen to it at different times in their lives to see what's going to help them. And I want to give people the nuggets of information because so much growth came to get to the point where I could be positive about Carter having cancer.
And by giving them the nuggets, are you reinforcing your own belief?
100%.
Who gets the most out of it?
I get the most. I taught a mindset class on Sunday. A lady asked me to come and teach her youth at church. And there were 15 girls, and I made journals for them, and I researched all my favorite stuff and all the tools I use, and I've actually decided I'm going to make that into a real journal and have it published and sell them.
Well, that's perfect, because when I was teaching the rules of engagement, that's what we're calling it. It was mentioned to me to teach leadership to kids, and so with the right people in the room, going back to the environment matters.
Yes.
That's now happening, and that'll happen next summer. So
See?
There's probably going to be some synergy between what you're doing and what we're doing.
Which is great. And I'm going to make this journal, the one I put together for these kids, because it gives them the tools. Hey, here's some things to do when you're not feeling great. Check in with your emotions. Play the match game. Am I a match for good emotions or bad emotions? I made this whole journal for him. Well, John.
Did you get that journal when you were a kid?
No. That's exactly.
I didn't either.
Yeah, no one helped. No one gave me any advice on this stuff, right? And it's so funny is that I told John, I wish I'd known this stuff when I was a kid. It would have made a huge difference.
I got some advice like, well, you don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, what the hell's wrong with you?
My dad told me, I'll give you $100 if you graduate from high school.
There you go.
Yeah, it was motivating.
That's very big thinking.
Yeah, it was amazing. But it does change everything, right? This podcast is changing everything because I'm gleaning the
What's
most.
the opportunity with what happened, right? It's what you're explaining with cancer. So you could have chosen to cry in the hallway more often.
Yeah.
You could have chosen to eat ice cream more often, or both. You could have cried while eating ice cream.
Yeah.
Or you could have chosen to be who you became in that moment. And which one is going to create the version of yourself that's documented in the 10-year letter, the future
Yeah.
self letter?
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember the week before Christmas, and the week before Christmas, I had this. I used to meditate a lot when Carter. I still meditate a lot, but I meditated a lot when Carter had cancer, and I was meditating at church when it was quiet, and I had this thought come to me that I should do Christmas breakfast, brunch, and gas gift cards and parking passes for the whole 5th floor a week later, because this was the Sunday before Christmas Eve was the next Sunday. And I actually told God that I thought he was on crack cocaine and that it was a psychotic idea, and I was not doing that because my kid had cancer. We were under a lot of pressure and stress, and I thought it was a
So
bad
I
idea.
can't do things for others.
Yeah, when I'm freaked out myself. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember the day that I cried my eyes out all night to God about Carter having cancer. Before Carter had cancer, I had a rule that I would do something and serve someone every day. Every day.
I do remember that.
And then,
I got it.
so this just reminded me. So I had a
So
rule.
you could have chosen to toss that out the window. Go ahead.
But this is amazing. The night I cried my eyes out when they told us Carter had cancer everywhere, it did really freak me out. And I was crying my eyes out. And at 2 in the morning, I was asking God about this. And he asked me, do you believe all this stuff? And so the next morning, I had to get up really early. Carter was having surgery at 6. And this was at 2 in the morning. I was still awake crying.
Do your actions match your beliefs?
Right, do they? And so that morning, I had checked Facebook before I showered, and I saw that Candace, your wife, was in the hospital and was recovering from something. And it's interesting is when I was getting ready to walk out the door, I thought, oh, I'm not going to have time to do service for anyone today. I should send Candace a get well card really quick, put a stamp on it, set it out so the mailman can take it, and at least I can make sure I did my service today for someone, right? And it's just interesting that I couldn't figure out what to do, and that came to me really quick. I put a card in the mail to her really quick. Not a get well card. It was just, I didn't have one, but I just grabbed a card, wrote a little card, thinking of you, praying for you, love you, right? Put it in the mail. And so I did service for others, right? And then what's interesting, in the week before Christmas, it took me 24 hours, and it was Susan Wyatt in our office came by the house, and she was ding-dong ditching us and leaving us groceries on our door. And John brought her in and had her come in. And it's so funny that I told her about my psychotic idea that I thought maybe in 5 days' time I could organize this whole thing. She said, everyone loves you so much. Put it on social media, and everyone will help you. And so so someone gave me a new perspective. I don't have to do it all myself.
That's interesting.
Right?
That's powerful.
That's really powerful. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Colleen Lowe doesn't have to do this her whole self. And it's interesting is I put it on social media that night. I didn't care what I looked like. All my videos back then, I just looked terrible. And it's so funny is the next morning I woke up to hundreds of messages from people wanting to help. Hundreds. And it is amazing that what I thought was...
Look at all the people you impacted by giving them that opportunity.
Hundreds of people helped. Do you know, in 5 days, we fed the whole 5th floor, and we did gas gift cards for the whole 5th floor and a week's parking passes. And so many people from our office and in the community came to my house on Christmas Day and went with us, and Christmas Eve they were at my house stopping by and dropping stuff off. But do you know why I feel like the universe or God told me to do that a week before? I think I might have gotten really depressed about how my Christmas was going because my kid was so sick. And I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself because I was so wrapped up, and I had 5 days to pull this together. And it took so much time to do it that I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. And so I think that the cancer thing,
You didn't have time to let that thinking get in your way.
Because I was so consumed with this project.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that we can create that.
That's taking action.
We can create that in our lives, no matter what. You don't have to have a kid with cancer. You can create that in your life, at some level. But we have to wrap it up. I wanted to say I appreciate you so much, and I'm so glad you came on my show. And I know that I think one of the reasons Paul Morris agreed to be on my show is because of my connection with you. And I really appreciated that because we're doing his book for book club, and I'm starting a book club, which is just crazy.
Wealth Can't Wait.
Wealth Can't Wait, yeah. I read his whole book, and it just really impacted me, and it's
Well,
changed
if
my
it
life.
weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. And
Yeah.
if I weren't here, we wouldn't have met. So it's all
Full circle.
full circle.
He's impacted.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, because you know what? That's how I met you. Because he decided, right? It's a chain. And that's how I met Kevin, too, right? And Thatch. So it's a whole connection of people here. Because I feel like this is like my new life. Like, I'm 51 years old, and I feel like I'm just starting, if that makes sense.
Well, it's like a rebirth, mental rebirth.
Yeah, Renaissance. The Culen Renaissance.
What's your goal for the audience?
I want my audience to have a renaissance and a rebirth for themselves and to realize that they matter and that their life, they shouldn't just be living their life. They should be living a life that matters and that they should live the life they were meant to live, and they're not. When they were a kid, they felt like they had endless possibilities, and they are probably not living that life that they've thought they were going to live.
So let's pretend they haven't heard any other podcast you've done. They didn't hear the first 3, and they're not going to listen to the next 10,000. What 2 or 3 things should they do? What are the action steps from today's message?
I think the first thing they should do is they should write themselves a letter what they want their life to look like in 10 years.
So I, David Culen, it's now 2028, and I blank.
And then describe in detail what your day looks like, who you're with, what is, what is, how do you spend your time, with who, what have you accumulated, what's the impact you've had.
That's funny, we just did that this morning.
Did you upstairs? Yeah.
Clarity.
And what's the legacy you want to leave? That's my big thing.
Beautiful.
I think they should get clear on that.
What's the legacy you want to leave?
I want to leave a legacy of love and inspiration and hope for people to know that no matter what's going on, they can find joy in the journey.
Beautiful.
How about you?
My goal is to help people identify gaps in either mindset or behavior or a combination of, and move through those to live the biggest, best life possible.
Oh, that's good. I love that. Thanks, Dave, for being on the show.
Thanks, Colleen.
You're awesome.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I love you so much. Thanks. You're awesome. That was good. We're done. Wraps it up. That's it. We just talked to each other.
That's it.
That concludes this episode of Miracles Are My Normal. We appreciate you spending time with us. We hope you gleaned a few nuggets that will assist you on your journey towards creating your own epic life. Please share this podcast with those who would enjoy it. Leave us a review and subscribe, so when new content is available, you'll be the first to know. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to our next time together. Have a great day living in appreciation.